Okay, then I think we have to choose wisely now. Now that you have told us that the dopamine remains the same,
Right.
I think it's a huge eye opener for us. Thank you very much for letting us know this. Also, do you think this is one of the reason why there's a lot of fear, anger, and frustration that we see a lot among adults and teenagers now? Because when I talk to people, they have extreme anger and frustration that they directly tell me I have punched the wall.
Right.
It's that bad. So, would you like to share something on the same?
So now what happens is, again, coming back to this ABCD study that I was talking about, one important finding this study spoke about is a reduce in impulse control behaviors. So there is a particular brain area which deals with impulse control.
Okay.
So impulse control can be in the form of controlling my anger or controlling my urges to go buy something, to eat something. So these kind of impulses that come in the brain, there is one particular area which tries to say, okay, calm down, relax, we'll do it later.
Okay.
But now, unfortunately, electronic media, screen time is shrinking this important area. And now because of this shrinkage, we see the brain being more impulsive. And let's try to take a very simple example. Probably, when I was a child, coloring used to be where you sit with a book and you sit with those sketches and then you gradually try to fill up those empty spaces. But now I see a lot of teenagers or, children much younger, who shouldn't be using a screen, coloring in that iPad. They click on a button and they click on a button and there's color filling everywhere. And now, if you again look back into another example, when I was a child, when I would watch television, in between the movie, there would be an advertisement, and that advertisement would happen for some 3 to 5 minutes, and I would sit along. But now there is an option called as skip ad. So basically everything is happening over a click. I click, there is color. I click, things change. I click, the ad disappears. So now the brain starts getting used to this things happening over a click. And now when there are real life situations where things are unfavorable, when things are not happening over a click, this brain cannot handle that. And that makes this brain more aggressive and more rebellious, anger, frustration, like you said.
Yes.
And sometimes even self-harm, which is because they're not able to tolerate that whole waiting period.
But how does self-harm work? Like we see being shown in web series as well. If I'm talking about strictly web series and movies, they show teenagers or adults trying to harm themselves, and that is at the end calming down their anxiety. But would you like to enlighten our viewers that's not how it should work? Also, coming to the second part of the question, you mentioned about brain development and about coloring among children. So when I worked with you earlier, when I was a journalist, you mentioned a very good fact that children should not be given cell phones at all until they are 6 years old.
Right.
But we see most of the parents who are not able to handle their children well, they play some cartoon and give it to the child. That also stops their brain development, is I remember what you mentioned.
Absolutely. One, when it comes to self-harm, basically every time there is a difficulty in managing the emotional stress, some maladaptive ways of dealing with this is by creating a physical pain. So when there is a physical pain, the brain gets distracted from the emotional pain.
Okay.
But this whole thing can be done in a more coping way. This can be done in a more socially acceptable way, where distractions can be created in a more positive, in a way that can help the brain grow instead of the brain decline. But unfortunately, sometimes individuals, because of stress, because of anxieties, because of depressions, fail to look into the positive side or fail to look into the more better coping mechanisms, but yield into these kind of behaviors, all of which can be treated with treatments of mental health. Coming to the second aspect, yes, when it comes to screen time, there is so much evidence right now which talks about how spending a lot of time with the screen is causing a lot of developmental delays in individuals. Starting from speech delay to, not learning some verbal skills or not learning some motor skills. All of this is happening with screen. Now see, when two individuals communicate, they gradually learn a very important human skill called as non-verbal communications.
Okay.
So basically, I look at you and even before you say something, I understand your emotion.
Hmm.
So you can look at me and say, oh, Virinchi, you're looking stressed today. Virinchi, you're looking sad. What happened?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, these skills come when you actually talk to people and when you communicate.
Right.
But now the whole communication is happening with the screen where
Yes.
it's only a one-sided thing. It's not a two-sided thing. And that causes a delay in a lot of these brain skills. It causes a delay in a lot of these brain developments, and it gradually pushes the brain into a very weak state. And once the brain is weak, it is at a highest risk of developing a mental health issue.
So, do you think parents say children have changed? Children say parents have changed. So, do you think parents are somewhere not dealing with the rebellious kids in the right way? Or do you think that it's the children, like we mentioned, the food that they are eating, the screen time that they are into, and the content that they are taking in? Do you think it's their mistake or it's totally the parents? Like how teenagers have changed. When you were a kid, your parenting was different. When I was a kid, my parenting was different. But now teenagers are a total different breed. So what do you have to say about it?
Well, one thing that I would like to say is kids model their parents.
Okay.
So there's a lot of modeling that happens. And most parents agree to this because the first time the child looks at the mother or the father, trying to brush their hair in front of the mirror, the child wants to imitate that. When the father or the mother is wearing boots or shoes, the child wants to imitate that. Similarly, the child also learns to use gadgets, electronic media, looking at their parents. And this starts at a very young age.
Okay.
Like I see my child probably holding a toy and putting it near his ear and trying to say something, probably because he's seeing me or my wife talking on the phone.
On the phone, correct.
Now, gradually, this change, or this kind of an imitation that happens continues for a while. And after that, is when we see when we say that the child has become rebellious now. So probably trying to avoid a lot of these things at a young age is something that we should be looking at. And the second thing is the way parents are dealing with rebellious children is also, in a very maladaptive way, if I can say. It's something like, there is this famous movie called Check De India where Shah Rukh Khan says,
Yes.
"Is team ka gunda main hu." And that doesn't work at home. You cannot be that bad guy to tutor the child, because the child is also learning that. He could be afraid at that point,
Correct.
but he is also learning to be bad. So somewhere the way you deal with the child has to change. You need to be, listening to the child. You need to be understanding their emotions. Most important thing, which most of us, are not able to give, is the time that the child needs. The child does not need the screen. Frankly, the child does not want the phone. The child wants you.
Okay.
It is you replacing your presence with the phone. And now the child enjoys the phone and
There's no coming back.
Yeah, there's no coming back and you can't change it overnight. So gradually the parents should change. And again, coming to the eating habits also, it's all what we introduce. Because
Right.
sugars that the child needs can be given in the form of a fruit.
Correct.
But most often it's coming in the form of a chocolate or a cake. And, a lot of these sugars, a lot of these processed food have chemicals which are absolutely dangerous for the brain and the brain's development. And that's also something which is slowing down the brains. When I see teenagers coming and complaining of, attention, focus, concentration, memory related issues. One reason is undoubtedly the screen. The second reason is also the food that they're eating.
Okay.
So these things needs to change. It's easy for the parents to say that my child is learning this from the school, but it's not true. Because, the child has already learnt it before going to school most of the times.
Yes.
And yes, schools also, work with some protocols. I know that, my child, or my wife or me are told not to send some specific foods, during the breaks, which is a good thing. So you want to make sure that everybody is eating healthy. You want to make sure that everybody is, working towards their health, even in the school environment. But the maximum thing should happen at home.